A Story of the Caracas Valley. By James Barron. Hope high-perched upon the rocky way, stands a Posada stern and grey, which from the valley, seems as if, a condor there had paused to light and rest upon that lonely cliff, from some stupendous flight. But when the road you gain at length, it seems a ruined hold of strength, with archway dark, and bridge of stone, by waving shrubs all overgrown, which clings round that ruined gate, making it look less desolate. For here and there, a wild flower's bloom with brilliant hue relieves the gloom, which clings round that Posada's wall, a sort of misty funeral pall. The gulf spanned by that olden arch might stop an army's onward march, for dark and dim, far down below 'tis lost amid a torrent's flow, and blending with the eagle's scream sounds dismally that mountain stream, that rushes foaming down a fall which chamois hunter might appall, nor shame his manhood, did he shrink in treading on its dizzy brink. In years long past, ere bridge or wall had spanned that gulf and waterfall, 'tis said, perhaps, an idle tale, that on the road above the vale occurred as strange and wild a scene, as ever ballad told, I ween. Yes, on this road which seems to be suspended o'er eternity, so dim, so shadow-like, the veil o'er which it hangs, but to my tale, once, 'tis well known, this sunny land was ravaged by full many a band of reckless buccaneers. Cities were captured, old men slain, trampled the fields of waving cane, or scattered wide the garnered grain, an hour-wrought wreck of years. Where'er these stern freebooters trod, in hacienda, church of God, or, on the green enamelled sod, they left footprints so deep, that but their simple names would start the blood back to each Spanish heart, and make the children weep. E'en to this day, there are many crimes the peasants sing in drowsy rhymes, on mountain, or on plain, and as they sing, the plaintive song tells many a deed of guilt and wrong, each has a doleful strain. One glorious morn, it so befell, I heard the tale which I shall tell, at that Posada dark and grey which stands upon the mountain way, between Caracas and the sea, so grim, so dark, it seemed to me fit place for deed of guilt or sin, though peaceful peasants dwelt therein. At midnight we, my friends and I, beneath a tranquil tropic sky, bestrode our mules and onward rode, behind the guide who swiftly strode up the dark mountainside, while we with many a jest and repartee, with jingling swords, and spurs, and bits, made trial of our youthful wits. Ah, we were gay, for we were young and care had never on us flung. But, to my tale, the purple sky was thick overlaid with burning stars, and off the breeze that murmured by, brought dreamy tones from soft guitars, until we sank in silence deep. It was a night for thought not sleep, it was a night for song and love, the burning planets shone above, the Southern Cross was all ablaze. 'Tis long since it then met my gaze. Above us, whispering in the breeze, were many strange, gigantic trees, and in their shadow, deep and dark, slept many a pile of mouldering bones, for tales of murder fell and stark, are told by monumental stones flung by the passer's hand, until the place grows to a little hill. Up through the shade we rode, nor spoke, till suddenly the morning broke. Beneath we saw in purple shade the mighty sea, above displayed 1,000 gorgeous hues which met in tints that I remember yet, but which I may not paint, my skill, alas, would but depict it ill. E'en Claude has never given hints on canvas of such splendid tints. The mountains, which, ere dawn of day I'd likened unto friars grey, gigantic friars clad in grey, stood now like kings, wrapped in the fold of gorgeous clouds around them rolled, their lofty heads all crowned with gold, and many a painted bird went by strange to my unaccustomed eye, their plumage mimicking the sky. O'er many a league, and many a mile, crag, pinnacle, and lone defile, all nature woke with a smile, as though the morning's golden gleam had broken some enchanting dream, but left its soft impression still, on lofty peak and dancing rill. With many a halt and many a call, at last we saw the rugged wall, and gazied upon the ruined gate which even then looked desolate, for that Posada so forlorn seemed sad e'en on so gay a morn. The heavy gate at length unbarred, we rode within the busy yard, well scattered o'er with many a pack. For on that wild, romantic track, the long and heavy laden trains toil seaward from the valley's plains. And often on its silence swells the distant tinkle of the bells, while muleteers shrill, angry cries from the dim road before you rise. And such were grouped in circles round playing at monte on the ground. Each swarthy face that met my eye to thought of honesty gave lie. In each fierce orb there was a spark that few would care to see by dark, and many a sash I saw gleam throw the keen cuchillo into view. Within, the place was rude enough, the walls of clay, in color buff, a pictured saint, a cross or so, a hammock swinging to and fro, a gittern by the window laid whereon the morning breezes played, and its low tones and broken parts seemed like some thoughtless minstrel's arts. A rugged table in the floor ran thro' this homely commodore. Here, weary as you well may think, an hour or so we made abode, to give our mules both food and drink, before we took again the road. And honestly, our own repast was that of monks from Lenten fast. The meal once o'er, our stores replaced, we gathered where the window fact upon the vale, and gazied below where mists from a mad torrent's flow were dimly waving to and fro. Meanwhile, the old guitar replied to the swift fingers of our guide. His voice was deep, and rich, and strong, and he himself a child of song. At first the music's liquid flow was soft and plaintive, rich and low, the murmur of a fountain stream where sleeping water lilies dream, or, like the breathing of love vows beneath the shade of orange boughs. And then more stirring grew his song, a strain which swept the blood along. And as he sang, his eyes so sad, which lately wore the look of pain, danked with a gleam both proud and glad, awakened by his fervid strain, his face now flushed and now grew pale. The song he sang was this, my tale. A fort above La Guaira stands, which all the town below commands. The damp moss clings upon its walls, the rotting drawbridge slowly falls, its dreary silentness appalls. The iron bars are thick with rust and slowly molder into dust. The roofless turrets show the sky, the moats below are bare and dry. No captain issues proud behest, the guard-room echoes to no jest. As I have said, within those walls the very silentness appalls. In other days it was not so. The Spanish banner, long ago, above the turrets tall did flow. And many a gallant soldier there with musket or with gleaming spear, packed on the battlements that then were thronged with tall and proper men. But this was many a year ago, a long shot back from memory's bow. The governor here made his home beneath the great hall's gilded dome. And here his lady wife he brought from Spain, across the sea. And sumptuous festival was made, where now the tangled ivy's shade is hanging drearily. The lady was both fair and young, fair as a poet ever sung, and well they loved, so it is told, had plighted troth in days gone by, ere he had won his spurs of gold, or gained his station high. And often from the martial keep they'd sail together on the deep, or wander many a weary mile in lonely valley, or defile. Well, once upon this road, a pair, a lady and a cavalier, were riding side by side. And she was young and passing fair, with crimson lips and ebon hair. She was the gallant's bride. And he was cast in manly mold, his port was high, and free, and bold, fitting a cavalier. But now bent reverently low his crest's unsullied plume of snow played, mid the lady's hair. This knight with orders on his breast, the governor, as you have guessed, the lady was his wife, and they, alone were on the road that day. Their horses moving at a walk, and they engaged in earnest talk, low words and sweet they spoke. The lady smiled, and blushed, and then, smiling and blushing, spoke again. When sleeping echo woke with the shouts of a wild band who urged with spur and heavy hand their steeds along the way. Gave but one look the cavalier, murmured a vow the lady fair, his right arm is around her throne, her form close gathered to his own, while his brave steed, white as the snow, darts like an arrow from the bow. His hoofs fall fast as tempest rain, spurning the road that rings again. Onward the race. Now fainter sounds the yell and whoop, but still like hounds the pirate band behind him rush, breaking the mountain's solemn hush. On speeds he now, his steed so white far in advance, proclaims his flight. God speed him and his bride. But ah, that chasm's fearful gape seems to forbid hope of escape. He cannot turn aside. He bends his head. Is it in prayer? Is it to shed a bitter tear? Or utter craven vow? No. 'Tis to gaze into those eyes which are to him love-litten skies, to kiss his lady's brow. And must he on? Full well he knew that none were sparred by that wild crew, never a lady fair. And now a shout, a fierce halloo, told that they were again in view. Close to his ear a bullet sings, and then the distant carbine rings. Why pales the cavalier, and why does he now set his teeth and draw his dagger from its sheath? He breasts his charger at the leap. He pricketh him full sharp and deep. He leaps, and then with heaving flank gains footing on the other bank. A moment, mid the pass's gloom, vanish both veil and dancing plume. It seems a dream. No. There is proof, the clatter of a flying hoof, and too, the lady's steed remains, with empty seat, and flying reins. And then is borne to that wild rout, a long and proud triumphant shout, and he who led the pirate band, urged on his horse, with spur in hand. The long locks drifted from his brow, like midnight waves from storm-vexed prow, and darkly flashed his eyes of jet beneath the brows which almost met. Stern was his face, but war and crime, for he had sinned in many a clime, had ploughed it deeper far than time. He was their chief. Will he draw rein? Will he the yawning rift refrain, and with his halting band remain? He raced up in his stirrups, high, better the chasm to descry, and measure with his hawk-like eye, while his dark steed begrimed with toil, tried madly, vainly, to recoil. A muttered curse, a sabre goad. Full at the leap the robber rode. Great God! His horse near dead and spent, scarce halfway o'er the chasm went. That fearful rush, and daring bound, was followed by a crashing sound, a sudden, awful knell. For down, more than 1,000 feet, where mist and mountain torrent meet, that reckless rider fell. His band drew up. They could not speak for long, and loud his charger's shriek was heard in an unearthly scream, above that roaring mountain stream, like fancied sound in fevered dream, when the sick brain with crazy skill weaves fantasies of woe and ill. Some said, no steed gave forth that yell, and hinted solemnly of hell. And others said, that from his vest a miniature with haughty crest and features like the lady's pressed, fell on the rugged bank. But who he was, none knew or tell. They simply point out where he fell when horse and horseman sank. Like Ravenswood he left no trace, tradition only points the place. Rude is my hand, and rude my lay, rude as the inn, time worn and grey, where resting, on the mountain way, I heard the tale which I have tried to tell to thee, and saw the wide deep rift, 10 yards from side to side. Great God! It was a fearful ride the robber took that day.